Hello, and welcome to another episode of Awaken Your Truth. Today, we get to talk about, it's kind of like a little bit of an extension of our last episode, but we're going to talk about, can you have goals, or how do you have goals if and when you're practicing presence?
This is going to be an interesting one because right away, those two things, goal, presence, one seems like the now and a goal seems like the future.
Right. So are they opposites? We're going to find out.
We are.
Katie, you want to share a joyful moment?
I do. I have one right away. We had a giant snowstorm, a big dump of snow, and it resulted in our trees kind of bending and collapsing with the weight of the snow.
Yeah.
And I was out on my morning walk looking at those trees, and they were beautiful. It was dark, but I could see the white of the trees. But I also had this feeling like they felt really heavy and they were bending over and kind of drooping. And while it was pretty because it made little arches, I was like, what if I help them out a little bit? And I was a tree liberator. So I would go, all the trees that were in the road, I would just gently tug on the end of them, and they would like lose their snow and just spring back to life. And it was so much fun. It felt like just releasing their burden and giving them their freedom back. And I did get whitewashed a few times, but it was totally worth it. It was like just releasing these trees and feeling them spring back to life was really, really fun.
Oh, that sounds so fun. I can totally feel that.
Yeah. What is your joyful moment?
There was a time last week and I was walking Kai. It was in the evening and it was a little bit rainy. And so I love rainbows. Katie knows this. It's always a sign of like evidence of, I don't know, it just feels like a little universal evidence. You're on the right path. you're in alignment. And so I was taking Kaya out and there was just a little peak of a rainbow when I stepped outside the campsite, and I was like, oh, that's so fun. And then I was walking around and looking at the rainbow, and I was just feeling like, how could it get any better than this? I can't tell you how many, like in the last 2 months, I've seen more rainbows than in my entire life.
Oh my gosh.
It's so wild and amazing. So then I turned into this one community and I was walking down, and then I could see it was getting bigger. It was like, this is almost a full rainbow. And then I continued to walk, and I'm just in the moment of it. I'm like practicing feeling the rainbow instead of saying it's beautiful with my mind.
And what does a rainbow feel like?
Oh my God, it feels like joy, but it also feels like magic. Like that's the word that kept coming to me. So then I swear it was like I stepped into this other world. Like everything felt so, I was in like a bubble of joy. And there was these like, the rainbow was full and it was almost starting a second one. You could see the beginnings of a second one. The clouds behind it were like pink and full, and the whole sky was pink. And then there was these like kids coming by, like a little family on their bikes. And I'm like, did you see the rainbow? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, did you see the double rainbow? And then he's like, Mom. And then it was just like this interaction. And I turned down the street and there's like, I'm walking into 2 double rainbows. And then I turned around, and on the other side, the sun is setting and it's like coming through the clouds, and it's like pink and purple and orange. And I'm just like, I'm in some sort of magic space right now. And it just felt totally connected and so joyful.
When you feel like you are so aligned and connected to source, do you have the experience of your physical planet changing?
That's what it felt like.
That's exactly what I feel like too. Sometimes I'm walking around saying, the world has not always been this beautiful. Like,
yes,
are you
that's what it felt like.
Kidding me? I'm saying this all the time. Like, wow, how can this be so beautiful? It looks completely different.
I asked myself that. I'm like, I wonder if I'm seeing the world differently right now. Because I'm in that vibration.
It feels true. Like, oh my gosh, what if when your vibration is lifted, this makes perfect sense, is that you're seeing the world at a higher vibration.
That's what happens.
That's what happens.
That's what happens. That is
fun.
Science as well as everything we do. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's so
what
amazing.
A way to be on this planet. That was a great description. Thank you.
Yeah, I can still feel it. That's awesome.
Would you like to share a little bit of background information for the topic?
Yeah, let's start. So this topic kind of feels like it came in to us and then we get to talk about it, which is perfect. And I've just had a few experiences in the past 24 hours even that all kind of relate to this. So the first one was I had a coaching call with one of my clients who wanted to talk about goals and this experience of like, okay, so I manifested all these things I wanted this year, like things that were dreams and things that I didn't at one point never thought was possible. And they arrived and she was like, but now what? Like now it doesn't feel like I thought it would feel. And I was like, and I'm like getting all excited because I'm like, this is so perfect. And this is exactly what happens. And this is like the opening to the next level, right? Or next part.
Next opening.
Yes. I love that we're being intentional about that. Katie and I at some point realized we don't like the word level because it doesn't
feels
feel
like better, like a sense of good or bad. And that's not what it is at all. It's everything is the perfect unfolding of expansion.
Yes.
And the path happens when like we're ready for it.
Yeah.
And it's not an up level. It's just an opening.
And there's no forcing. We don't control that or force that. Which we have lots of good stories about. So we had that conversation. And then the next morning I received an email about same kind of thing. Someone who was working with me a year ago was saying, hey, I manifested this day that I wrote about almost perfectly, but it didn't feel the way I thought it would feel. And so I'm wanting to like understand more and learn more. And then again, of course, when I was listening to a recent Eckhart podcast, and I have to tell this side story because it's just funny. So I was at the gym and I'm listening to Eckhart and like, he's making me laugh so much. And I'm just thinking to myself, how funny it is that if people knew I was listening to this like spiritual teacher while I'm lifting weights, that made me laugh more. So the question was something about, Eckhart was talking about like manifesting from your ego or manifesting from your presence. The question was something like, if we're practicing presence, it is all we do just sit there and wait for things to happen and wait for things to come to us. And so that's why I'm like, all of this, I'm like, we got to talk about this because I think that also is an idea about presence is, but what do I do then? Like, how do I make stuff happen? Or how do I get what I like that? Do I just sit there?
Yeah, this is good.
So what's coming up for you?
Okay, well, do we want to talk about just the idea of goals first? In terms of your experience with goals, has it changed? Do you have a goal?
Yeah, I love that you asked me this.
Yeah.
When we jumped on, because I was like, oh, I don't have goals anymore. I'm not against goals. There's lots of things I want, but I think a goal feels like I'm supposed to try to make it happen somehow.
I feel the same way and definitely can relate to that. I used to have goals and I don't ever intentionally remember stopping having goals.
Yeah, same.
But don't you remember the days of the new year begins and you're writing down this year, I will blah, 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 blah. And that was like fun and exciting and working towards the goal.
Yeah.
But at some point in my experience, that whole idea of trying to get somewhere, because I think it was tied to when I get there, I will be happy.
Yes.
And I had that, I was kind of operating from that mentality, like, okay, what do I want next? I want this and I want this. And there was that outcome was going to provide something for me that wasn't here now.
Yes. And I think that's the key is generally when we're talking about goals, we're focused on an outcome that exists in the future So if we're focused on that thing in the future, we're not being present. We're not being here. So we're actually like missing a lot of the path to get there, to that thing.
Yeah.
And in a goal, it's, well, we know we want there's anything we want is because we think we'll feel better having it. So
Mm-hmm.
any goal or outcome oriented desire, if it's attached to giving you something you don't have now, it's coming from the ego,
Right.
right? It's coming from that place that's like, I will have the inner experience when I have that outer thing.
Yes. Okay. So now, would you say that your inner being or your inner truth, does your inner truth have a goal?
The
The
word
word goal
goal
doesn't really
isn't,
fit, does it?
yeah, it's not resonating with me. I think it has, I would say, desires. It has like expressions. Sometimes I'll ask my inner being, like, what feels fun? How do you want to express through me today? Or like, how do you want to love
Ooh.
today? But it's not, what do you want to accomplish or what do you want to get? It's not those things.
Mm-hmm.
What about you when you think
So if
about,
I'm trying to categorize like what I feel I'm being pulled towards right now, maybe it's
right?
like it's more of what I'm opening to.
Yeah.
And I do have a sense of opening to absolute freedom and life beyond the mind. And so if I had to put a label on it that maybe could be relatable, that would be a goal. But it's
Yeah.
not something I'm trying to achieve. I'm opening for this
Right now.
experience right now. I'm
Yeah.
opening for this experience of absolute freedom.
Mhm.
Freedom from the mind, freedom from conditioned thoughts, freedom from fear, and the freedom to experience, as we've talked about, what life is like beyond the mind, in the
Yeah.
unknown, the unknown.
Yeah. I really love the feeling of being pulled to know myself beyond how I have known myself. Yeah.
Know
How my,
yourself beyond. Ooh, 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 that's fun.
like beyond what the
Yeah,
mind knows, because I
beyond what the
I'm
mind,
really
exactly.
aware that I have, I have thought I've known who I am. And I'm learning that, like, oh, now I'm learning to know who I really am. And
And
that
the old,
freedom
who
that
you,
comes with that.
yeah, the freedom that comes with it. Who was the old person that you thought you were? Like
It was
who,
all my mind's thoughts about me. It was solely based on, it was all conditioning and all
the
filters of how,
labels,
yeah,
the
labels. Yeah, yeah,
labels.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we feel the experience of we've had this goal, the mind has had a goal, we've achieved the goal, and it doesn't feel like what we expect, what would you say is the opening there?
I would say the opening is it's the opportunity to, I was going to say focus, but practice the experience, like the path to the goal versus the outcome of the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we talk about this a lot in Awaken Your Truth, but the joy, accessing the joy of being, like the joy of, or the joy of doing. Um, and so when you are in that state, when you're enjoying the journey and you're making, this is the thing, is when you're making the priority to enjoy the path,
Yes.
a million things happen. Like you get to the quote unquote goal or destination quicker, easier, and then you've, oh, this is so amazing how this works. There's no feeling lacking when you get there because you've been in the feeling that you wanted the whole
Right.
way.
Right. So if you are not enjoying the path and you are just waiting for this magic outcome, you get to that outcome and it cannot fulfill your expectations because you've been putting all your happiness, joy, peace into the future. Where
And
it
the
can never
future is
exist.
still in the future when you get to your goal.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. You get there and you're like, wait, what? It's not here. Right. Because you haven't been practicing the nowness and the here-ness of it
That it
all
is
along.
here.
Ooh, and when you're in the nowness and the here-ness, like that feeling builds and builds and builds and grows.
And then when you get there, you're like, I'm here and it's here.
But it's always been here.
Always been here. It's always been here. It's that acknowledgement. It's that willingness.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
feel like this is really lofty and it would be good to
Yes.
share specifics.
I was just
So
going to say the questions that will come in. Okay, but how?
No, I'm totally open to sharing my path with goals.
Yes.
If that, okay. So in the past, perhaps I had a goal of, let's say, okay, I'm going to be a certain weight before I go to the beach in Mexico.
Yes, I remember.
That would be a goal.
Yeah.
And yeah, you remember that it's probably within the last 5 years that I've had that or something. And so focusing on that goal, I was like, okay, how am I going to get there? Well, I'm going to eat this certain way and I'm going to exercise this certain way.
And that was coming from, just so we can point out, of your history of experience of what you've been told about what will get you there.
Totally.
So it's
of
all
like,
coming from the past. It's not creating a new experience for yourself. All that information is coming from the past.
Like I've read that you eat this way, and I've read or heard that you exercise this way. Yeah. So the journey wasn't very fun because perhaps I was restricting what I was eating, or I was exercising when I didn't want to exercise. Yeah. The journey was not enjoyable. And as a result, maybe I'm trying to think back of when this would happen. Maybe I did reach the weight that I wanted to for Mexico. Yep. But then I didn't enjoy it because I was really worried about it going away. And then it went away. And it went away.
So you got the external thing, but it didn't give you the internal experience you thought.
No, because I was like, oh my gosh, now what do I do? Now I have to keep eating this way and exercising this way. No, that was so hard. I'm not going to do that. Yes. And so it was very fleeting and it was not satisfying. Yeah.
So how would you do that differently now, applying this?
Well, I can take the same topic because I do feel pulled on this planet to create a new way from the now of radiant health. And that is like the new way is freedom. Like that is my ultimate experience that I'm opening to, freedom. Yeah. And my mind does want to jump in sometimes and say, well, to be healthy, you're supposed to do this and this. But what my inner being has said is that radiant health comes from the now, always. Stop thinking about what you're going to eat. Stop thinking about how you're going to exercise. You'll know in the now. So
you can never get, radiant health isn't a goal in the future.
No, it's like being radiantly healthy now. And that means like being in my body, moving when it feels joyful, eating, listening to my body. Like it's presence. It's present moment awareness and the release of control that my mind wants to come in and control everything.
Control the path. Because your ego mind thinks it knows what's right, but it's getting all its information from what has been in the past.
And it feels so silly to say because like, of course my body knows what to do. Of course I can listen to my body, but my mind has been taught that I can't and that I have to control it. So for me, this ultimate freedom means awareness of when the mind comes in and choosing to release that. Choosing to release and releasing those thoughts is what is opening to more and more freedom in all parts of my life, in everything.
Yes. So how can we say that are presence and goals opposites?
Can you share an experience before we answer that?
Oh, sure. So the experience that came to mind when you were chatting is because more of my pain body is around money. And so building my business has been such an opportunity. And I remember having a goal, and I was following business professionals' advice to set a goal of how much you want to earn in a year. And so I remember setting, okay, I want to earn 6 figures this year. And firstly, so I did a lot of work, I would say a lot of different work in making sure the goal felt good to me. Okay. So that I was actually like in alignment with that good. So I was like aware that how I feel about something was important. So it wasn't totally like not inspired, but the part that wasn't as effective as it could be is I was still trying to manage the path. My mind was trying to manage the path of, well, what do you need to do? What actions do you need to take in order to reach that number? And my mind still like, I'm laughing now at all the times I've done this in my business, where I like pick a number goal and then I work my way backwards. Like, okay, well, how many people, and then how many podcasts do you need to do or whatever. And actually I never did that. I never did podcasts, but that kind of thing, like make the plan that makes that number real or possible, like playing out the how. And so what happened was that those actions, the idea that I had to do those actions, created resistance because that's not free. Yes. So same thing, freedom, right? Like, oh, what are you going to do with 6 figures? Oh, you're going to feel free and abundant. Okay, well, you can't be stressed all of a sudden free. Like it doesn't work that way. And so my mind was like, so when I would get to those actions, and I would probably force myself to do a few of them before I'm like, okay, you're not going to create what you want out of alignment. So I kept, but it was like a constant. So this is what my experience was for me. It was like a constant back and forth, like between my mind and knowing it was important, I was in alignment. And because I still was trusting what my mind said was the path. Right. So I'd be like, okay, oh no, I trust how I feel. I can go have fun. I can let that go, let the how go. And maybe I do a couple weeks, a month of that. Then I'm like, then the fear came up, which I didn't realize at the time. Then I was like, no, this isn't working. And you have to go do all these things. And I jump back into action. Yes. So that was the cycle. And then, I'll obviously how I do it different now. Well, now I don't have an income goal. I have a feeling. There's no goal. Now it's the expression of who I am. And like, let's do that. And it's such a different feeling and experience. And even though I know lots is going to come in the terms of business and on that path and growth, it feels so different now. Like I'm not trying to get somewhere else. I am like loving how it feels to be right here. Like I love having this conversation. Like I love getting to share this. I love every time we did our workshop, the soul visioning workshop, and it was amazing. And I loved every second of it. And like, it's just more and more of that. I loving the path. And so then there's nowhere to get to. No, because you love the path so much. I love the path so much. And that's like living your truth. Like that is, you're practicing this awareness and you're practicing the presence and being here now and living fully now. It's so, being able to do that is so freeing. Would you say that it's the mind that tells us we need goals? Yes. I would say that, because the mind is always trying to if we're just laughing because Lee popped out of the RV and then like quickly scampered back in. Because I think the mind operates in the physical world only. And that's where, so for the ego to have a sense of its own value, it needs to know it's accomplishing things. and doing things? What do you think?
No, we have been taught like we're to be productive on this planet. We have goals, we achieve them, we make another goal, we move on. Definitely.
And that's where our value comes from. That's a life.
Our value comes from what we accomplish, the doing. But what we're opening to is like, it's about the being. Yeah. It's the new way of being. It's about the being in the now, in the now, being so in love with the now.
Yeah. And the goals come, they come.
And when I'm envisioning the word goals, like to me, it has changed in my perspective to like experiences.
Yes.
I'm opening to the experience of absolute freedom on the planet. I'm opening to the experience of infinite possibilities beyond what the mind knows. And that feels like a goal, but not in the mind's idea of a goal, because it's just like an opening of something that's like moving through me as an experience, an awakening.
I was just going to say that is it takes the definition away from like you having to do something to make it happen. Yeah. This is expressing through me. I'm opening to an experience of freedom. I'm opening to an experience of love. Is your work is to open, which means releasing the fears, that any fears that are in the way. That's the only thing. But it's not accomplishing the goal. Right.
But they're still doing. They're still doing in this. So it's not going back to the question that was asked to Eckhart, do I just sit around and wait? They're still doing, but the doing feels so different. The doing is done for doing's sake. It's not done for the outcome. The doing is done because it's inspired and it feels pleasurable and you're in the moment.
Yeah. This is one of my, I love it. I was going to go on to a whole different topic.
Save that for later. We'll remember it. We'll try to remember.
I'm sure we will.
I'm sure we will, as you roll your eyes.
I know.
I thought of another question that would be fun to explore.
Yeah.
Does the mind have preferences?
100%.
Okay. Yeah. What about the idea of having preferences on this human plane?
Oh, this is so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, something you said to me at one point, and this is probably going to not seem random. And we were talking about gender and things and being a woman, being a man, and all the interesting parts of that, how that is so much comes from the mind. And you said like, but I love being in a woman's body. Yeah. And I was like, yes, that's I also love being in a woman's body. And I think that's a great example of how preferences are like not unique, but I'm going to say allowed, but fit into.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. To the path of the awakening, because I think we still get to have our fun. Like we're here on the planet. Yeah, we're awakening, but we still get to have fun on this physical plane. That's why we have our 5 senses.
Yeah.
We
and
touch,
fun
we
is
feel, we see, we enjoy rainbows. We enjoy tree liberation. Like we get to have joy. We get to have joy, and our mind can have preferences of things it wants to experience. Like I'm just thinking about leaving for Mexico next week. Like my mind is looking forward to the sun and the beach. And that might be like a preference that I'm projecting into the future. But we get to have those things. We get to experience that on the planet as we're awakening. But the difference is when we're wanting the feeling of joy, love, and peace to come from something in the future.
Yes.
Instead of feeling the joy, love, peace now.
You can enjoy the thoughts and the desire for being in Mexico in the sun.
Oh, yes.
But if you're not thinking about that, it doesn't take anything away from you.
Right. Like an example I can think of, like my mind could be like, oh, it's so cold here. It's bitterly freezing. The wind is blowing so hard. I cannot wait to get out of here.
Yes.
Right. So when I get to Mexico,
I don't want to be here.
I don't want to be here. When I get to Mexico, I'm going to feel so much better.
Yes. That's exactly it.
And that used to be there for me, like, oh, it's so dark, I'm miserable, I'm going to feel better when I get to Mexico. And now I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go skiing. The sky is so pink, the snow is beautiful, and Mexico is going to feel great. Like
And
both. The path is great, and maybe my human desire for the sun is great too.
yes. And I think that's how you know, like if you're setting a goal and you're like, I can't wait to get there.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here. I can't wait to get me over there. That's our opportunity.
Maybe the goal, like the new way of the goal is like, oh, it'd be fun if, and then releasing it. Oh, it'd be fun if.
Keeping a lightness to
a lightness about it.
Yeah.
While we're on this beautiful path of joy.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to ask you again.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Are presence and goals opposite?
I think the way the mind has defined the goal of needing something to happen in the future, that does feel like it doesn't coexist with presence.
Yeah, I agree.
You agree? Okay.
I agree from the mind's perspective.
From the mind's perspective of something fulfilling me in the future, the goal fulfills me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And I do feel more aligned with the idea of opening to an experience, because that kind of keeps me grounded in my truth too. It's like, if I could say that freedom is my goal, from a now perspective, that still really makes it easy on my path to feel when I'm not free and be like, oh, freedom is my path. I'm releasing that.
Because your awareness of when you're not free is giving you the opportunity to release the resistance that's in the way of the freedom. So I have a question then for our listeners. If you're listening to this and you like goals, or even just around the beginning of the new year, what if you asked yourself, what do I want to experience? What experience do I want to open to in 2023? And just
that feels really good. What experience do I want to open to? And if you've experienced the situation where you set a goal, it was everything you ever thought you wanted, you got there and you felt a little blank or empty, it's time to be excited, because you're opening to a new way of being.
There's more coming.
There's more
here.
There's more here. There's more here. There's more here to open to.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing space with us today. It's such a joy.
Yes, and send us your joyful moments or your questions or your comments. We'd love to hear from you.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.